I began writing this piece in spring 2018, began rehearsing it in fall of 2019, performed it live for the first time last spring, and filmed this recording last fall. I believe it is just as relevant now as it was when I began writing it, as it has been since long before the personal experiences I relay even occurred. Hence, this piece is old yet timely, much like a performance that inspired it, Justin Vivian Bond's definitive version of the song Born in a Trunk, originally from 1954's A Star is Born, repurposed for their long-running show, A Star is Born. They kept the text entirely intact from Judy Garland's iteration, save for the omittance of a racist minstrel number, replaced instead with a rousing kick line. The part in particular that had me weeping was a moment transcribed in the Genius annotations as, while meeting with the third agent, he chases Esther around his desk, clearly intending to force himself on her sexually. He offers to represent her, but she has no interest in advancing her career in this manner. I thought surely MixViv must have added that, given their tendency to masterfully insert biting social commentary into classic material, similar to their medley of Baby It's Cold Outside with the Eurythmics' Sex Crime. But no, that moment was there, verbatim, in Judy Garland's version. Needless to say, the theater industry has always merited pieces that critique it, and thus, after seeing Justin Vivian Bond's show in 2018, I felt lionized to create Ingenue Audition. I spoke to friends and colleagues about my intentions for the piece, and all seemed eager to see it, but I worried since I know this piece is merely a facet of my own experience. And although my concerns were quelled by Ingenue Audition being received well, both in its in-person and online premieres, including fellow theater people telling me they saw themselves in my story, I am back to feeling the paradoxically conflicting emotions of this is extremely relevant to recent events, and I fear that my speaking up will unintentionally become speaking over. And as such, I would feel remiss to present this piece devoid of additional context, hence this prologue. On April 7, 2021, a telling exposé was published by The Hollywood Reporter, revealing decades of abuse perpetrated by Scott Rudin, a monolithic Broadway producer whose influence has dominated the theater and film industry since the 1970s. In the article, Tatiana Siegel documents many instances of physical abuse, often leading to employees needing to be hospitalized. This physical abuse primarily took the form of throwing objects, including food, dishware, staplers, and computer monitors at employees. Rudin's abuse also manifested as verbal attacks, racism, as experienced by playwright Jeremy O. Harris, and ableism through calling employees the R word and putting chronically ill and disabled employees in danger by not adhering to doctor-mandated medical accommodations. Most people who suffered at the hands of Scott Rudin have feared for their careers, given his ability and tendency to blacklist theater workers who have come forward in the past. Siegel's article spelled out the decades of abuse as clear as day, and as soon as it hit the public, many theater professionals I admire took to social media to spread the word. Yet, it took days for pillars of journalism such as Playbill and Broadway.com to acknowledge this information due to Rudin's sway with such publications. Nonetheless, people continued to risk their livelihood in order to speak out against Scott Rudin, including actor Karen Olivo, who left their role as Satine in Moulin Rouge, stating, "What I am seeing in this space right now with our industry is that everybody's scared and nobody is really doing a lot of the stuff that needs to be done. People aren't speaking out." She continued, "So yeah, social justice is actually more important than being the sparkling diamond. Building a better industry for my students is more important than me putting money in my pockets. Those of you who say you're scared, what are you afraid of? Shouldn't you be more afraid of not saying something and more people getting hurt?" During this time, news also came to a head regarding the Broadway production of Jagged Little Pill rewriting the show to erase a previously canonically trans lead character. In theater critic Christian Lewis's extensive article recounting the sorry situation, they also address the implicit bias of casting binary gendered actors in a business so hinged on the results of an award ceremony that bifurcates their best actor categories into male and female. The snowballing of these events coincided with further discussions of the appalling racism that has permeated throughout the theater industry from the jump. Last summer, these conversations led to many artists and activists composing an open letter to white American theater as a whole, confronting the consistent patterns of racism that persist across Broadway and beyond. The We See You movement included a comprehensive list of demands petitioned by hundreds of Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the theater industry, yet systematically none have been acknowledged and nothing has improved. Other imperative and evergreen issues were revived in widespread online discourse, such as concerns surrounding ableism, fat phobia, and body shaming, as well as grooming, sexual assault, and casting couch scenarios. This rise in unified online activism culminated in a march on Broadway that took place on April 22nd. That is what made me revisit my performance and what emboldened me to put this forth again amidst this fast-paced and fiery climate of theater people sharing stories and speaking out about how they've been wronged by the systems at play in the industry they love. And every single time I read one of those posts, an overwhelming amount of comments repeated the same sentiment that audience members told me when I last performed this piece live. That happened to me too, and that's why I quit. I would love to still do theater, but I just couldn't take it. And really, what's the point when there isn't a place for people like me? So my grandma has announced that she is determined to live long enough to see me perform on Broadway, which is lucky for me since by that logic, she will surely live forever. But I understand why my grandma would want to believe in the narrative that I'm Broadway bound, especially given baby me's capacity to ruin brunch by belting out a little priest, sausages as props, right in the middle of a suburban IHOP. But let's face it, I'm not Broadway material. I'm barely even community theater material. I've been told to my face that I am too fat to be an actress and should really focus on behind-the-scenes stuff. Directors who had enough restraint to refrain from remarking on my appearance have instead told me that I am too smart to be an actor, which might sound nice, I guess, until you've heard it enough times to realize that smart is just another synonym for ugly. The first and last time I auditioned for an ingenue role was when I was 12, auditioning for the role of Joanna, since it was the only part a 12-year-old girl could audition to play in a Midwestern regional production of Sweeney Todd. My self-tape was recorded on the photo booth app of my desktop Mac, while my mom held up a sheet behind me as I sang "Green Finch and Linnet Bird." As I reached for those coloratura soprano notes, I leaned into the window so that the sunlight illuminated my mousy hair, thus making it as close to yellow as was possible for a Catholic school kid who wasn't allowed to dye their hair. Needless to say, I didn't get the part. I learned pretty quickly that in spite of how much I might want it, I can't play ingenues, love interests, female characters under the age of 40. My first ever principal role was that of Ruth in Pirates of Penzance, and don't get me wrong, I cherished that part with all my heart. But that was high school. Here in the real world, I've come face to face with the fact that by everyone's standards but my own, I don't have what it takes to become a real actor. Never mind the fact that in my college's production of the Vagina Monologue, I memorized a third part in less than a week because I was deemed the most equipped to take on another role. Never mind the fact that I seduced a fuckboy in the BFA acting program just so I could make copies of his Uta Hagen books. Never mind the fact that the assistant casting director told me to my face that the only reason I wasn't in that same BFA is because of an open secret about casting couch scenarios, and I just wasn't his type. And it's worth noting that I chose my college because, unlike other colleges, they don't have a weight limit of 165 pounds in order to audition for the acting program. I wish I was joking. And I know that there are better actors than me. I'm weak in technique. My singing voice often sounds like a dying cat. I mean, I am basically the modern-day incarnation of Mrs. Worthington's daughter, minus the tits. But I also know plenty of people who have pretty faces and teeny waists who can do the splits and some pretty beige laducas, and somehow that is enough. That alone gets them an acting BFA, a library full of technique textbooks that they've never once opened, and a vanity project cabaret at 54 Below, where they belt out devastating Kerrigan and Loudermilk songs with countless riffs and zero soul. I know that I am not the best, but I'm not worthless either. So I've decided to do what dumb elitists call taking the easy way out. I am a cabaretist. I write shit for myself and perform whatever I damn well please, and that means that no one can swoop in and decide that I'm too fat, too ugly, not enough his type to deserve to play the role. And this life suits me better than real theater ever could. But I miss it sometimes. I miss being in an ensemble that by closing night feels like family. I miss opening night pep talks from passionate directors and taking silly cast selfies in crowded dressing rooms clouded with hairspray. I miss ridiculous group acting exercises and tippity-tappity time steps and Mama made me mash my M&Ms. I miss rushing to the bulletin board the very moment that the cast list is posted. And I miss those rare and beautiful moments when I actually saw my own name across from a dream roll and had to trace my trembling fingers straight across the paper just to double, triple, quadruple check to make sure I wasn't dreaming. And I can't believe that I'm saying this, but sometimes I even miss auditions. So we're going to try again, clean slate, and imagine a world wherein I can audition for things without being laughed out of the room. Imagine what it would be like to get into an acting program without having to be anyone's type. Imagine what kinds of characters I could play if I were able to listen to my well-meaning friends who say, "Oh my God, you would be so good in that role," without having to acknowledge that their support is hinged on the delusion that casting is a meritocracy. And for those of you who happen to believe my singing voice to be ear torture, I have an extra challenge for you. I would like y'all to imagine that my singing voice is bearable. And I know that that might be a challenge, too much of a stretch for your imagination skills, but I believe in you. Hello, my name is Katherine Rose Turbes, and I'll be auditioning for the role of the ingenue. I love play rehearsal because it's the best, because it is fun. I love play rehearsal, and I get depressed as soon as it's done. But not depressed as in like kill yourself depressed. No, I'm not into self-harm. Dude, I swear here, check my arm. See, I just used the word to emphasize a point. Show the passion that I've got. I am passionate a lot. I've got mad gigantic feelings, red and frantic feelings about most everything. Like gun control, like spring. Like if I'm living up to all I'm meant to be. I also have a touch of ADD, but then again, so does Justin Vivian Bond, and they're one of the most phenomenal performers to ever exist. Like, they'll be singing a song, and something in the song will remind them of a story, so they will literally stop singing the song to tell the story, and then that story will remind them of something else, and they'll digress, and before you know it, you've heard like 10 brilliant stories for the price of one. It's one of my favorite things about their shows. I mean, I wish I could do something like that someday. Oh my God, one time they were singing the song Baba by Bambi Lake, which is a bop of a song, by the way, and singing that song got mixed with talking about Jodie Foster being a lesbian, which actually makes perfect sense when you think about it because Baba Black Sheep and Silence of the Lambs. Isn't that the cleverest thing you've ever heard? Now what was I going on about? Oh, right. I love play rehearsal, 'cause you are equipped with direction and text. Life is easy in rehearsal. You follow the script, so you know what comes next. Anywho, the point that I am getting to is sometimes life can't work out in the way it works out in the play. Like the only time I get to be the center of attention is when I'm Juliet or Blanche DuBois, and can I mention, that was really one of my best roles. He was a boy, just a boy, when I was a very young girl. When I was 16, I made the discovery, love, all at once and much, much too completely. It was like someone turned a blinding light on something that had always been half in shadow. That's how it struck the world for me. But I was unlucky, deluded. There was something different about the boy, a nervousness, a softness and tenderness which wasn't at all like a man's, although he wasn't the least bit effeminate looking. Still, that thing was there. He came to me for help. I didn't know that. I didn't find out anything until after our marriage, when we'd run away and come back, and all I knew was that I had failed him in some mysterious way and wasn't able to give him the help he needed but couldn't speak of. He was in the quicksands and clutching at me, but I wasn't holding him out. I was slipping in with him. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything except I loved him unendurably, but without being able to help him or help myself. Then I found out in the worst of all possible ways, by coming suddenly into a room which I thought was empty, that wasn't empty, but had two people in it. The boy I had married, and an older man who had been his friend for years. After it was over, we pretended that nothing had been discovered. Yes, the three of us drove out to Moonlight Casino, very drunk and laughing all the way. We danced the Varsovjana. Suddenly, in the middle of the dance, the boy I had married broke away from me and ran out of the casino. A few moments later, a shot. I ran out, all ran and gathered about the terrible thing at the edge of the lake. I couldn't get near for the crowding. Then somebody caught my arm. "Don't go any closer, come back, you don't want to see." See? See what? And then I heard voices cry, "Alan, Alan, the gray boy!" He stuck a revolver into his mouth and fired, so that the back of his head was blown away. It was because on the dance floor, unable to stop myself, I'd suddenly said, "I saw, I know, you disgust me." And then the searchlight which had been turned on the world was turned off again. And never for one moment since has there been any light that's stronger than this kitchen candle. Pretty good, huh? And no matter how hard I try, it's impossible to narrow down the many reasons why I love play rehearsal. I happiness cry whenever it starts. It is just so universal, getting to try playing so many parts. Most humans do one thing for all of their lives. The thought of that gives me hives. I've got so many interests I want to pursue. And why am I telling this to you? Guess there's a part of me that wants to. Back to play rehearsal. My brain is like bzz. My heart is like wow, because we are here